Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Mortal Kombat Franchise Documentary. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by the one and only Damien Colletti, who played the role of Kano in Mortal Kombat Fates Beginning in 2015. And I suppose, Damien, if I can start off, growing up as a teen in the United States in the era of the arcades, before the PlayStations and the Mega Drives and the Xboxes of this world, were you an arcade, or were you one of those who went to the slot machines and bashed on Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter? And if so, what was your favorite, and what are your memories of that time? And what character did you like to play?
So first I want to start by saying thanks for the interview, Jim. I appreciate it. I obviously have a love and a passion for Mortal Kombat. It does date back to the arcades. And to give you a great example, when I was growing up, there was a pizza shop, Italian pizza shop, that actually got Mortal Kombat. And right above it was a 7-Eleven that got Street Fighter too. So like we would go back and forth. We just walk up some steps, 7-Eleven, walk down a pizza shop. But it was mostly all about Mortal Kombat. Me and my friends from school, we'd go there after school. We just play Mortal Kombat all day. And it was a great time, great experience in life back then. You know, that was even it was the original Mortal Kombat. So the characters I like the most, I would probably say would be Raiden and Johnny Cage. But probably mostly Raiden, because I just love the electricity, and he's the thunder god. You know, you can just teleport, you know, all the smooth moves. And then I like Johnny Cage's cockiness a little bit, you know, all he did in the shadow kick and all stuff like that. But I definitely loved it in the arcades, and then obviously in the consoles. You know, I ended up getting it on the machines like that as well. So yeah, definitely a passion from the beginning.
And I suppose, Damien, in terms of Mortal Kombat, is one of those sort of fighting games, sort of franchises, in terms of it being unique, because it's made the transition to the big screen, and where some of its main sort of rivals, like Street Fighter, with a big company behind it, like Capcom, and Tekken with Namco, they tried to crack that sort of code and trying to taking a universal global fighting game and putting onto the big screen. And they one or two shots at it, but it generally sort of failed. But Mortal Kombat made that sort of transition, and I suppose it was all on the efforts of the first movie in 1995, which is globally sort of renowned as probably one of the best sort of video games turned into movies of all time. And do you remember going to see that Mortal Kombat movie back in 1995 when it came out? There was sort of great anticipation, and what did you think of it?
Unfortunately, I didn't see it when it first came out in the movie theaters. I did see it at a later date. I don't remember when, but I totally enjoyed it. I totally I mean, some people thought maybe it was too campy or it was too whatever, but I just enjoyed it for what it was. The true martial arts, all the characters, you know, we got the tournament style. It was just great. I think all the actors portrayed the characters, especially, you know, the original Kano, Trevor playing that with Sonya. I mean, the fight scenes, Goro, everything. I thought the movie just came together great. And then when you had like Johnny Cage in the forest, taking on Scorpion, like some classic battles. So I was really impressed with it, to tell you the truth. You know, I was really all into it once I finally got to see it.
And I suppose, Damien, as an actor, in terms of doing sort of roles and action sort of hero roles and the sort of fantasy sort of world that is Mortal Kombat, how did the opportunity come about for you to get cast in the role as Kano in Mortal Kombat Fates Beginnings? How did that sort of land at Damien Colletti's doorstep?
Yeah, so it was a nice surprise, to tell you the truth, because I didn't know it was casting. I didn't know the film was being created. And one of the actresses, who's also a producer, contacted me and said, we're actually looking for Kano in the film. We're doing a Mortal Kombat fan film for, I guess it was like the 25th anniversary or whatever. And they're like, would you be interested in that? Would you want to audition for that? And I said, yeah, that would be great. I would love it. You want to tell me more about the production and everything? And she gave me the information. Then ironically, 2 days later, one of my friends was in it who played Scorpion. And then he also contacted me and said, we're looking for Kano. So kind of everything was coming together. But then I realized, well, Kano is the only character that actually has an Australian accent. So you kind of have to change the accent. You know, you have to talk down on the mic, you know, hello, baby. So I actually didn't know any Australian. So I actually wanted to study it and learn it. And I kept Googling the pronunciation, the language, and watching YouTube tutorials. And then I recorded it. He gave me some of the scenes for it. So I recorded in my backyard on my porch. I had my knife, one of my favorite knives for it. sent it to the director, and they liked a lot what I did, and then they cast me in Kano just like that. And before you know it, I don't know, just a few weeks or a month later, we were probably already filming. Like, it all happened pretty quick.
And you mentioned filming. You did the filming in Woodbridge, New Jersey. In terms of that, was it a sort of a long production in terms of shooting? And what was that sort of your schedule like in terms of that, in terms of the time you arrived and in terms of the script and getting to interact with other sort of actors in their various roles? Were you talking a month's production or more?
No, it was actually the opposite. Again, the whole goal of making this movie is they wanted to submit it to Urban Action Showcase Film Festival, where they were going to have an award for the best Mortal Kombat fan film. And Keith Cook was there. Carrie was there, who played Shang Tsung's son, original movie. So it was a real big thing in New York. It was the AMC Theater, even where it took place. So it was kind of like we had to put it all together super quick. So the night before, we actually practiced at a dojo in Linden. The thing was called Ashiyama Dojo. So they wanted all the actors there so we could, choreograph our fight scenes and practice, only for like an hour or two. And unfortunately, only 40 actors could make it. So we didn't have a lot of the cast. And Daniel Pesna was also there. We flew him in from Chicago. As you know, he was the original Scorpion, Sub-Zero, the list goes on, and from the video games. So he helped us choreograph some of the fight scenes. And we did that for an hour. And the next day, filming already was going to start. But ironically, that night, we found out that we lost our Shang Tsung's son. He actually bailed on us, and we didn't have anybody. Wow. So that's how Daniel Pesna got into the movie. We needed to get him a wig. We needed to get him a costume. So it was like, 8, 9 o'clock at night. We're like, Daniel, we need you to play Shang Tsung's son tomorrow. So that happened so quick. And then we actually only filmed it. Actually, I'll step out of the picture. My background picture you can see is actually Ariana's Grand in Woodbridge, where we filmed, and you can see it, and you can see me as Kano a little bit. So that was the exterior scenes where we filmed all the fight scenes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So we actually only did that for 3 days. We actually had to film the whole film within 3 days, which was so incredibly tight because we had deadlines for the for the film festival. Obviously, we had more time. We would have been able to do, a way better job and a bigger budget. So I think for 3 days, we really packed a lot into it. And I want to add one more thing. I know the fight scenes and some of the choreograph doesn't look incredible. That's because the film was probably 30 minutes and we had to make it really tight. It had to be 20 minutes or less. So a lot of the fight scenes, that's where all the footage was removed. So if we could have got the full fight scenes, which we recorded, if we could have got them in the movie, it would have looked a lot more realistic, the punches, the kicks. So we really had to condense it. And I always told the director, I wish we would have had a longer version, unedited, but we didn't. So we had to just throw it all together, edit it all quick, under 20 minutes, and submit it. And obviously we won the film festival, which was a great honor. And Carrie even gave a speech before our movie premiered, which was pretty cool. So he got to check out the film. He had one regret, though. He regretted that we didn't ask him to play Shang Tsung's son in the film, which was pretty funny. But yeah, so that's the story.
And I suppose, Damien, in terms of your sort of Kano sort of costume, in terms of the aesthetics of Kano, we all sort of know his great sort of visual effect is in terms of his eye, that sort of metal sort of effect that he has. Were you able to sort of portray that in the movie? And can you tell us a bit about your costume in terms of Kano and how you assembled that?
So the director had his idea and I had my idea, and we met in the middle. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to do 50% from the video game and 50% from the movie, and kind of combine it and form my own Kano version. So he wanted, the karate outfit, which was cool, and I added the chains and things like that. I wanted the light beard. So we kind of molded it like that. And then obviously, I threw in the acting and, the whole Australian language and everything. And also at the same time, the director was great with improv and leaving it open. So like when I originally got the script, it wasn't written in Australian or Australian slang. He let me convert all that to make it realistic. And I was like, I told him, I got the script and all, how can you have Kano in a movie and not have him do his fatality? Like, fatality wasn't even in the script. I was like, you got to let me rip somebody's heart out. Kano has to rip somebody's bloody heart out, mate. you know, I really want to do that. And I gave him 2 different examples of how we could do it in the movie. And he liked the one where I come out and you see in the movie and I grab the soldier's heart, take it right out of him right before I fight Sonya. You know, and I added the own line, "You've been caned by Kano, mate." And that just came together, and then it just totally made me feel like I was Kano because I'm ripping someone's heart out, and I have the fight scene with Sonya. So yeah, that's kind of how it came together, and you know, brought it to life.
And I suppose, Damien, as we're aware, there's a new Mortal Kombat movie coming out in 2021. The last Mortal Kombat movie was in 1997, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And speaking in terms of some of the research about the new movie, it's got a release date in April 2021. It's being filmed in Australia. So probably one of the characters in it, Luz Tang, was mentioned there recently that this version of Mortal Kombat, it's along the lines of very graphic, sort of very violent in nature, more along the lines of a Dark Knight, a Joker, in terms of that sort of sinister sort of a background in terms of that. Do you think that's only right now, given that the Mortal Kombat is going back to a sort of a hardcore roots, and maybe maybe back in the early 90s we were sort of a PG sort of an era, and you mentioned about the issue of what was acceptable for movie screens back then and back now. Do you think it's only right that Mortal Kombat should be in the 21st century an R-rated type of movie in terms of its content? Obviously, the script is what makes Mortal Kombat, the background and so much dialogue. But in terms of the fight scenes, do you think that it should be gory?
I think it's great that they're finally going to make it dark, deep, rated R. I mean, you look at the video games now with the fatalities, like how graphic they are, how much blood, how much gore. So I think it's great if they're just going to be hardcore, so to speak. And I know it'll disappoint people that are underage, but you know, they'll have to go with their parents or they'll have to wait when they get older. But the real fans, which grew up from the original movie, that have been waiting for another theatrical release, this is what we want. I think this is what the fans want. We want a hardcore Mortal Kombat movie with some crazy fight scenes, crazy fatalities, intense. So yeah, I think it's actually going to be perfect from what I've heard and read. Obviously, like that's something I wish I could have gotten auditioned for and went to Australia, but I'm sure they got a good Kano probably from Australia. But yeah, I think the fans are really gonna, you know, really enjoy this.
Damien, no doubt you could fulfill Josh Lawson's shoes in that role. I suppose in terms of Mortal Kombat, if someone asked you, I suppose, Damien, if there was a Mortal Kombat sort of encyclopedia, a dictionary as such of all the characters, and they put Kano into that encyclopedia, and they asked you, Damien Colletti, having played the role of Kano, to write those 2 sentences to sum him up in terms of how you like to portray him, in terms of Kano's character, what would you like those 2 sentences to read in your mind? What does Kano, what do you think when you think of Kano?
Well, the first, I don't know about sentences, but the first word that comes to mind is badass. Kano just being badass, hardcore, in your face. I mean, you know, he likes to fight with Sonya. He might not always win, but he always gives it the fight. Cocky is another word. And flirtatious. I like when he, you know, flirts with Sonya. You always playing hard to get, ain't you, love? You know, just flirting with the ladies and things like that is pretty cool. We even had some of that in our movie, but that got it out when I'm actually flirting with Sonya more too. So yeah, I would say badass, cocky, and flirtatious are the 3 words that I like to symbolize Kano, and you know, the way I like to portray him and bring him to life.
And I suppose that, Damien, in terms of the Mortal Kombat fan base and its global audience all over the world, from Malaysia to Argentina to Bolivia to Mexico to Germany, you name it, it's video games, there's a new generation of fans. Do you ever get hit up by some of those fans in terms of reaching out to you in terms of your portrayal of Kano? And is it something that you're delighted to be still associated with even to this day?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I have, and I was surprised of how many people, especially in the beginning, were reaching out to me and, you know, commenting on the YouTube videos and adding me on Facebook. I remember like the first comment I got on YouTube, the guy was asking me, you know, where was I born in Australia? Like he liked my accent so much, he asked where was I born in Australia, and I told him I wasn't. And I became close friends with a lot of those people too. A lot of the fans, you know, I became friends with them. I still talk to them on Facebook even regularly, and it's such a great community that's worldwide which I love. You know, everyone can just join together and share the love for Mortal Kombat. It's such a great positive outlet for everybody. So yeah, it's great. And still today, you know, people mention it, or people would hear about it still, and we talk about it and share memories. And the original people in the video game, like Daniel Pesna and Richard. I actually was friends with Richard, you know, the Kano from the video game, even before I was in this movie. Like, so I've become even closer friends with Daniel and Richard, and I know some of the other people. So it's just great from knowing all the actors and then knowing all the fans. I just love the Mortal Kombat community. I couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah. On that note, Damien Colletti, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening to relive your memories playing Kano in Mortal Kombat Fates Beginning, the short action movie series movie in 2015. And Damien, no doubt there'll be more opportunities for you in the Mortal Kombat sort of franchise. It's almost like the James Bond sort of series. Mortal Kombat will never die. In 20 years' time, there'll be more incarnations of Mortal Kombat, more video games, more to TV series, no doubt. And obviously, please God, there'll be more opportunities for you to relive that sort of Kano character on the big screen. But for the moment, Damien Colletti, a pleasure talking to you today in these sort of troublesome global times, and as we all look forward to the release of Mortal Kombat, the new movie in 2021. And for the moment, in terms of Kano and in terms of Damien Colletti, good day to you, sir.
You too. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Take care.
Fight.